Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I rank the various cheerleader card designs, mainly of the 1990s. Now, I've already done two videos that have looked at I don't want to say the history of cheerleader cards as much as the main cheerleader cards that we've had over the years, at least well into the new millennium, which is comprised primarily of 8 proper sets. One of those sets is a subset, another one is an insert set, and then the other ones are either standalone sets of multiple teams or individual sets for specific teams. And there are some auxiliary cards which do exist in varying forms that I'm not going to get into here. I just want to look at the main card sets that came either as a package deal or were released in packs. So that's really what I'm looking at. And if you haven't had the chance, if you're not sure about this stuff and you want to learn more about it, the videos are obviously out there. But I'm just going to be going right into these different card sets to look at the card design. And I've got 8 sets, but I've also got 9 designs. So that's what I'm going to be ranking from the bottom to the top. And I like almost all of these designs. There's only one that I don't like, which is the XFL cards, and that's for many different reasons. The big problem with the XFL cards is that the XFL itself was created out of wrestling and out of the X Games. It was the idea of taking all of that showmanship and that deconstructionism and adding it to football. And so everything was about gritty and chaotic. And the cheerleaders were a big part of the image of the league, but the image of the league was a big part of how the cheerleaders were kind of thought of. There's a huge rumor about how many of these cheerleaders were strippers. That was just a part of the whole aesthetic of the XFL. Not really fair to many, if not most, possibly all of the cheerleaders, but the idea that these are not the debutantes who are the cute girls that you want for your son to date. These are the edgy, almost scary, kind of freaky and crazy women. That was kind of the idea they were going with. And that was kind of how they were presented in this card set. So everything is really torn down and it's really rough and there's no aesthetic to it. So that was the thrill. But I mean, you got to be into that, and I've never been into that. So for me, when I look at these, I just go, okay, whatever. To me, it's kind of a waste what they created. I like the ones that they did for the tabletop football a lot better, but these are the actual cards for them, and yeah, just no. But that was the only design that I don't like. All the other ones I do like, to varying degrees. And the first one I've got, which comes in at 8, is the Enor Dallas Cowboys cheerleader card set. And the Enor set is, I mean, this is a nice card. It really is. And it's got the things you would expect on a cheerleader card, which is a really nice shot of the cheerleader. It's got some blue because it's the Cowboys. It's got some pink because it's women on the card, and that's just what you do. And then it's got this silver border around the outside with the blue stars. And that's where the card kind of suffers. I mean, the way that it comes together is a wonderful marriage of components that does look nice. Now, when you get multiple cards together, when you're going through, whether you're flipping through the cards or you have them in binders, the silver, which really comes out more as a gray, is kind of dull and softens the impact of the card, which is unfortunate. But then I also look at the promo cards where they have blue on the outside, and while that's not great or necessarily better, I look at the two and all I see is potential. I go, ooh, if you keep working on this, you got a good card. I mean, granted, that's on the card front. The card back is pretty lousy. I don't like anything about the card back, but the card front really does come across really well, except for the fact that there's a lack of energy and enthusiasm and excitement to the card, and that's the thing that's missing. While it does look nice, it's up against some pretty heavy competition, so that's just kind of the way that it works. Starting with the San Francisco Gold Rush. And the Gold Rush cards are really nice cards. I love the way that these look, mainly because of, I mean, obviously the construction of the cards, which means they do have a tendency to brick, but the way that the cards look, it's very fancy. The images are wonderful, really nice looking outdoor shots, and the uniform that they have with all of that red really kind of creates a liveliness to the card that I love. So right out of the gate, the uniform itself just makes the card look good. And I also really love the logo they have with gold foil, especially with the cards where they have the player card or the playing card style card back where it's just the logo. Look fantastic. But I'm not looking at those kinds of cards. I'm looking at the main cards for each of the squad members. And for those cards, it does have the logo, which is nice, but the card back is otherwise really pretty pedestrian. It's got a cramped shot for her on the side where it's kind of squeezed, and then it has the area over on the other side for the text that feels shoved in there. There's a harsh contrast. The card back does not work. I don't like it. But on the card front, the big problem that it has is that as much as I really like these cards, and every time I look at them, I go, wow, those are nice. It doesn't take long before I go, wow, I don't like that border. Because the border is a mottled yellow, which is supposed to be like gold. And initially you get the look between the two of them working pretty well, especially if she happens to have pom-poms, because the pom-poms work pretty well with the gold on the outside. But that texture just works only in the initial reception, and then it gets old fast. That's the problem I have with this card, is that the border ends up being the detractor for the card. I look at it and I go, man, if they just fixed the border, this would be so nice. It is otherwise nice, but yeah, they did not do a complete card design, which is pretty common for cheerleader cards because they're kind of afterthought affairs. But it is surprising that I shift from here at 7 to number 6, which is the 1981 Topps oversized cards for the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader squad, because the reason that this card here is in the middle has nothing to do with card design, and that's the very reason that it's here. Because when you do a card where there's basically no border, in this case it's just a thin white band for the border on the outside, the back is a waste. It's just a big stretch of white with some text floating on it. That's all. If you do that, it's because the image has to carry. And these images carry, especially with the size. Now for you can't really see the size because it's coming across about the same scale as the regular cards, because there's just only so much room on the screen. But these cards are many, many times bigger than the normal cards, so they're huge canvases for some really great pictures, and that's the thing that makes this card set work so well, is all of these really cool images of basically in-action cards, or in-action pictures is the whole point of this card set. There are no cards that are dedicated to individual cheerleaders, which normally would be a flaw and would keep it off this list for me. But there aren't very many card sets dedicated to cheerleaders anyway. This is the first. But the big thing is that being able to see the in-action shots is so refreshing. In the Lime Rock set, we did have the Minnesota Timberwolves Reebok Performance Team. Those were in action, which were cool. And 2 Rams cards had stunt team cards for... those were also in-action cards. Those were basically it. And so having cards that really take the advantage of capturing the excitement of the event, that's something that's sorely missing. But especially with the real estate on these cards, even though the printing is terrible and the images are not great images, it's the real estate that allows these really impressive shots of the whole spectacle of the Cowboys game and the cheerleaders there in the space. That's what I love about this card. Topps was smart enough to not try to do anything, but just say, here are the images, and that's all we needed. And that's why I have it all the way up here, ahead of a couple of card designs that were good in almost all cases, but they didn't have the thrill, and that's what this has. This has the thrill. But those are the ones that are outside of the top 5. The top 5 for me is an area where all of these cards are more about the image and how they were approaching the image, which is really what you would expect, but it's an emphasis on the image, starting with the sideliners at number 5. And these cards probably have the best card back. It's a huge amount of space for an image, which is right off the bat, great, I love that. But it comes at a cost, which is that there's almost nothing written about her. And look, if you're gonna, for a lot of the members of these cheerleader squads, this may be the only sports card that's ever created for her. you'd want for her to be present on the card, not just a gorgeous picture. Come on, write a little bit about her and give her some three-dimensionality. This card set doesn't do that. And so when I look at the card back, there's something missing. And that does stand out to me. It's a little bit annoying. But the big problem I have is that on the card front, I like the two-team color on this card. I think that's a great way to make the cards work. Could be a little bit better, but I like that. And I like how much real estate they're taking up. But I don't like that white area down at the bottom where her name shows up and then a card number on the front. No, no, no. I've never liked that. This is a very clean, well-crafted card, and I love all of that, but the design on it has problems on both the front and the back that I cannot get past. So as much as I'd like to put it up higher, or have reason to put it up higher, I can't. And that's because, I say that because now moving to number 4, we're moving over to Lime Rock, where the card front is phenomenal, and the card back is a bit lacking. Now, I'll start off with the card back, where I like how much real estate there is to talk about her. It gives her the ability to be a real person. And I'm so glad that they do that, which they actually do that in almost all of these cards. You know, Sideliners is about the only case where they don't do that. So props to them for that. And I have a mixed relationship about the gold around the outside, but the big problem I have is that the image in the middle of the card, it feels like there's wasted space on either side. Now, originally I was thinking maybe if you shifted it to the side and did kind of like a 1990s score design where you have the bio information next to her. No, I don't want it to be off balance. I want this to be a balanced card. I feel that it needs to be that. So maybe make the image bigger or something. Because when I look at the card back, it really does feel like there's something missing, and that's a bit of a distraction. But that's the only complaint I have about the card. The card front, no complaints. I like it. A note about the floating text, that could be a little bit better, but it's not really a problem because this is a card all about the image, just like with the Topps card, or I should say the Topps Cheerleader card, where they just have a thin band of white around the outside. They don't have much of an inner border, so you don't need to worry about tying anything together. They feel like teammates. But the big thing is down at the bottom, they have the color box with the team name in it, and that's where you really get the continuity of all the different members of each dance team. That's where this card is the strongest. They have great images, but they also have a very simple element that makes them feel like they're part of a team. And that, to me, is a huge advantage to the card, which is, that's what we had in the Gold Rush card set, and that's common enough. But the way that this is so image forward and it's all about the image with just a highlight of the team color, I love it. But it could be a little bit better when I move over to number 3, which is the NFL version of this. And with the NFL version, they got rid of that and they instead have a floating logo for the team, which means that the portrait of her takes up even more space and it comes out even more clear to the audience, which means this is more like a high quality version of the 81 Topps oversized cards. Here, these cards do everything that you want on the card front. The back's the same as what we just said, but here, she is a lot more of the point of the card, which is not a huge improvement as much as it is a very acute and clear improvement over the basketball cards. But they're both basically variations on the same theme, so it's either 4 and 3 or 3B and 3A, however you want to look at it. But still, Lime Rock, for any issue you may have about it, it's basically the first player card for Cheerleader set. They nailed it, and they nailed it well. But there are 2 examples that did a great job of improving on this, starting at number 2 with the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleader set, which is the Dallas version of the San Francisco 49ers Gold Rush cards. Same design, but in this case, instead of having a mottled yellow around the outside, here they have an American flag. Really nice how it looks. A little garish, but perfect. And on the card back, I will note that the flag design works better for the strip down the side, But I am glad they got rid of that little thin band that separates the two. Not that it so much improves the card back as much as I'm not as bothered by the card back. But this is all about the card front. And the thing that really makes this work isn't even the American flag, it's the background behind her in the pictures. And this may sound kind of dumb to talk about card design, but talking about the backdrop behind her in the photo, but it makes all the difference, because I have a feeling that they chose that backdrop either for the card set specifically or for some sort of a presentation area, because what the backdrop does is it is a harsh contrast to her. So that, she's in blue and white, that's really the thing. And then there's this red to black backdrop behind, so there's a clear contrast. But if you look at the border of this card, you'll notice there's a lot of red and there's a lot of black, which means that the border works with the background and it basically neutralizes them so that she pops right off the card. She's right in front. The card is all about her. It really does an amazing job of presenting her well and showcasing her with a great environment around her. This is how you do a card set for something like this. I love the way that it looks, but it's not nearly number one, because to me number one is probably, if it's probably in the top 5 all-time great Topps card designs, period, across the board, which is the 2009 Topps insert of Cheerleaders. This card set is just fantastic. The design, so first off, they got rid of the border completely. It's a half bleed, and then they have some border design elements in it. But in 2009, they had a wonderful card design for football, which has a white border around the outside, and it has a really nice design theme that very much mimics the way these cards work, except they have a white border, in large part because of the parallels. But with the Cheerleaders, they also have the parallels, but they didn't bother with the white border, which allows the image to run off on all sides and really carry wonderfully, really carry beautifully. I love the way that these cards look. And the whole design theme that goes along, not just with the images, but the design theme itself is so strong. I love the combination. The back, I think they got carried away. I don't like it that much, but the card front is just so awesome. And, well, okay, I don't think there's anything more to say. I think this is a pretty obvious example. So that's the way that I rank all of the card designs for Cheerleaders from 1981 through 2009. Again, there are some ancillary cards that did appear that I'm not going to get into, just these sets. But to me, I'm pretty comfortable with the way that I have these ranked, because it's got to be all about the image. But at the same time, you've also got to address the card back, and you got to plan that in. So that is my list. So if you haven't seen the 2 videos that I've done on the Cheerleader card, the actual sets, and you're curious about it, obviously they're there to check out. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, and thank you very much for watching.